Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. A beautiful October Thursday in Wisconsin. It's really nice.
It's crisp.
Yeah, it's crisp. And we have a very busy show for you. Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review, joining us after 9:30. Jim's show, by the way, Saturday mornings 9 to 11 across the network to talk all things legal. There are a lot of things going on.
There are a lot of the legal.
There's lots of the legals. So we're going to be talking about many of those issues with Jim Santel. Next hour, Hans Breitenmoser is going to be joining us. Really looking forward to this conversation.
He is a dairy farmer from Lincoln County. He's also a beef producer as well. And we got, I mean, he's been on our show before. He's been on Pat's show. He's a regular on Pat's show. And when I wanted to reach out to someone about how the announcement of buying Argentinian beef would affect farmers, especially Wisconsin farmers, Darren Von Ruden, our friend, put us in line to Hans because he is also a beef producer.
Right. Of course, the President of the United States essentially saying that our beef producers don't understand.
Well, of course not. No one understands.
They don't get it like he does.
No.
So we'll talk about that with Hans in hour number 2. We will lighten up for the last half an hour of the show. J.R. Radcliffe from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel will be here to talk all things sports. Really impressive showing last night from the Blue Jays.
Yeah, the Dodgers can be beat, not by the Brewers, but they can be. That's the thing is we beat the Dodgers so many times in the regular season.
Don't look back. Don't look back.
I can't help it. Yeah, so the Blue Jays, I'm rooting for the Blue Jays. I have friends who are Blue Jays fans, and so that was interesting to see. And there's one particular player we're going to talk to him about that you saw that's very impressive. Very, very
impressive.
Is going to give a lot of dreams to men who will never play professional baseball.
Well, and I hope he can keep this going because you'd hate to see it be a one and done.
Well,
you know, there's going to be so much pressure on him now. Of course, it could all end. Right? Isn't the last game tonight?
Well, it could be the last game.
It could be the last game.
They could force a game 6 and possibly a game 7. And I don't know if that guy will pitch again at that point because he
probably
pitched,
not tonight.
But yeah, no, not tonight. But it'll be interesting. We'll talk about that more. But I got a text message on my phone, Jane, from somebody. We're not going to disclose their identity.
Okay.
But apparently it's Calvin Butenhoff's birthday.
It's our resident young person's birthday?
Our old Gen Z, or our elder Gen Zers'
our
birthday.
Senior Gen Z.
Our senior Gen Z. Sweet Kelby, it's his birthday. Oh my gosh, happy birthday, Calvin.
Happy birthday, Calvin.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Big plans, big parties going to be happening in Eagle tonight. Get a rock Eagle.
You know it.
All right.
No, it's going to be probably a normal night for me, but that's how I like it. So
nice and quiet.
Yes.
Nice and quiet. Well, happy birthday, Calvin. 27.
Yeah.
27.
I mean,
keep it up, and eventually you're not going to be our resident young person anymore.
we're going to need a new young
We're
person.
going to, yes,
Yeah.
we'll have to get a younger person.
It's like a millionaire who dates ladies. We have to get a younger version.
New model. No, we're delighted to have you here, Calvin. Important part of the show. So happy birthday.
Yeah.
Wanted to start off with this. We're going to talk about the ending of the SNAP benefits, which is going to happen on Saturday in just a little bit. But this is from Laura Schulte from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel this morning. Lawmakers struggle with path to reopen 2 housing facilities for homeless veterans. In a hearing yesterday, both sides debated where the money should come from and if the state should hand over operations of the Veterans Housing and Recovery Program to different organizations. So the bill they're talking about that was authored by Republicans would allow Wisconsin to reimburse groups that offer services to unhoused veterans up to $25 per day per veteran. This money would come in the form of matching grants to funds supplied by the Fed. A second bill would allocate $1.9 million over the next 2 years to fund the matching grants. In case you have forgotten, and certainly there's so much to remember and so much news that comes out on a daily basis. 2 of our 3 housing facilities for homeless veterans in Wisconsin closed in September. And that forced the folks in these facilities to either move to a different one. One's in Chippewa Falls. Another one is in Green Bay. Others had to go out of state.
Mm-hmm. From what I understand, all who are in those places, all in those housing facilities, had been placed in new, like they're
right.
not back on the
They didn't
streets.
throw them back. Yeah, which is great. But this doesn't, we still have this issue.
Yeah.
Also, an important thing to remember, in his budget proposal earlier this year, Governor Evers asked for $1.9 million to keep the program running, but Republicans axed it from the budget.
Yeah. And now we're doing this.
And now we're back and talking about $1.9 million.
Well, also, it's a squabbling. Like, this is one where I'm going to say, I don't care who does it. Someone do something. This is $1.9 million. What are we doing right now? Why?
We have $4 billion.
Why are we going back and forth in hearings? Why are we discussing? Just give them the money. Allow them to reopen. These are our vets. Case closed. Moved on to something else. This is the third time we're talking about this. And I do not understand why this is still an issue, and I'm tired of, like, I know the Republicans axed it from the budget because they probably thought no one would notice until we're here now, and now they're trying to act magnanimous, and they're pointing fingers at Democrats, but Democrats are pointing fingers at Republicans. I don't care. I just want the money given, and let's not talk about anything else. Just give them the money, move on to something else.
Well, again, both sides love to talk about how much they love our veterans.
Absolutely.
And all the sacrifices that our veterans made on behalf of all of us.
Yeah.
And yet, when it comes to help them out, they love to talk about it. It's when it comes to funding it that they all disappear.
It's thoughts and prayers. It's what it is.
Yes.
And
this goes back to Jon Stewart testifying in front of Congress, trying to get that fund for the first responders in New York about 9/11.
Yeah. Do your job.
And most of the chamber was empty of lawmakers.
Yeah.
They couldn't be bothered to show up for this, but they love our veterans.
They love our veterans. They love our farmers. They love our small business owners. They love our families.
Children.
But when it comes time when the rubber hits the road, they're not there. Or if anything, they're taking the cars away because they don't want us to have any access to benefits and or resources. And this is another thing where, it should have been one Republican, one Democrat coming together saying, here's $1.9 million. Let's go have an early lunch. This should not be a hearing.
It shouldn't be this difficult.
Yeah.
The Department of Veterans Affairs expressed concerns about the new bills. The legislation will only supply matching grants to non-governmental organizations, and there are a limited number of how many of those groups will then qualify. That's according to the DVA Assistant Deputy Secretary Joey Hoey. Organizations will likely also struggle to find startup costs to find a new building or furnish a new building meant to house homeless veterans.
Or, Jane, or just an idea, or we give them the $1.9 million and they reopen the buildings that already exist, and the people who have the jobs continue to work.
He does say that the Green Bay facility could be opened.
Yeah.
He said the one in Chippewa Falls is pretty much falling down.
Well,
and at some point is going to have to be raised.
Then,
which is going to require money.
Guess what then? Let's make it from $1.9 million to say $3 million to either renovate the building or find a new space. But again, this is not something that requires this kind of discussion. This should it should be 5 sentences on a piece of paper, sign it, vote for it, give them the money. We have plenty of it in our coffers. The surplus could more than pay for it.
Absolutely.
But here we are squabbling over $1.9 million.
If you're just joining us on Matenaer On Air, we're talking about an article in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about lawmakers struggling with a path to reopen 2 housing facilities for homeless veterans. This is in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. At issue is about $1.9 million. Congressman Derek Van Orden.
He was
in Wisconsin.
For why?
To testify at this hearing, asking lawmakers to set aside their differences to ensure that homeless veterans have access to their resources.
This man should be nowhere near that hearing. He should be nowhere near Madison. He shouldn't be that right there is infuriating, that he thinks his opinion should matter at all in this topic.
Well, and pointed out in this article, Derek Van Orden did not include funding measures for this in his proposed earmarks for 2026. Quote, Derek Van Orden didn't lift a finger to prevent a homeless veteran shelter in Chippewa Falls from closing down, according to the DCCC spokesperson. Van Orden owes Wisconsinites about why he failed to do everything in his power to bring federal money to keep it open and keep serving Wisconsin veterans.
This is just like the budget. He votes for the budget blueprint. He votes for the first version. He votes for the version that comes back from the Senate. 3 times he votes for the budget, and in there cuts SNAP benefits, which he said wouldn't go down a nickel. And then he has the temerity to call the governor the next week to say, save our hospitals.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, now what Republicans, because they're having daily hearings, blaming Democrats for the shutdown. And that's one of their talking points now.
He does not belong in those hearings. His opinion is worthless on this. He shouldn't be there.
Van Orden says it's unnecessary to set aside earmarks in the federal budget for these veterans facilities because the money's already there. Veterans just need guidance on how to get it.
And he's
Quote, we have tens of thousands of dollars waiting for veterans to use. We just need to get the word out to our veterans, unquote.
He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He doesn't even know what he's testifying on. He is an embarrassment. He is as Tony says on the live stream, he is a fraud. He doesn't care about veterans. And by the way, if you don't know this, he is a vet. Thank you for your service. But he doesn't care about them. He uses his status for clout, and he uses it to get in people's face when they try to challenge his authority.
Yes.
He is embarrassing. He shouldn't have been in that room, and he's not even speaking on the topic.
Yeah. Well, he's going to have a challenger again in the next election.
I've heard of this person.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Gene from Eau Claire is on the line. Gene, good morning. Thanks for joining us. We don't have a lot of time. What did you want to say?
He's only there for the photo op. He does this all the time.
Yep.
He appears where there's a problem. He gets his picture taken, and he don't do a gall dang thing. So thank you for covering this. You're doing a great job. Goodbye.
Thanks, Gene.
I'm just going to say, to me, this is, Jane, I think you agree. It's $1.9 million. It's to help our homeless vets. I don't feel like this is.
When we're talking about $1.9 million, and then we talk about the fact that Kristi Noem is getting 2, not 1, but 2 new planes for $172 million each.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder where the priorities are.
I mean, when it comes to vets, it's obviously not the priority of Derek Van Orden, or he would have helped them in the first place.
When we return, we're going to talk about SNAP benefits hanging in the balance. They are set to expire on Saturday. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. After the 9:30 news, our friend and colleague, host of Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings, 9 to 11 across the network. Great show.
Oh, my goodness.
Jim Santel is going to be joining us, an acting attorney, a former U.S. attorney. He knows law.
He knows law.
He knows legal.
He and law are like best friends, Jane.
They talk frequently.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to talk about, including a judge in Illinois who is not very happy with ICE and how ICE is treating people on the streets of Chicago in particular. So we're going to talk about that along with many, many other things. From what I saw on social media this morning, the United States blew another boat out of the water in the Mediterranean.
And they're just going to keep doing it because killing people stops drugs, I guess.
Apparently without knowing that what was on these boats. But anyway, Jim Santel is going to be joining us after the 9:30 news. Stay tuned for that. Wanted to start off with this. SNAP benefits are running out for almost 700,000 Wisconsinites on Saturday. Food Share is Wisconsin's version of SNAP. The program funded entirely by the federal government. Those will pause on November 1st. There are a number of food drives happening around Milwaukee County and probably in the community where you live as well.
We spoke to Emily Cephos yesterday, and she is running a food share in the Outagamie area that will be I'll tell you what, I will look after the show to see if there is a central place for all of that. I'll put that in the show notes. But if you need food, find it. If you can donate food, please do so.
Yeah. And if you can donate money to food pantries, they're able to buy in bulk.
Yes.
So their dollars go a little bit farther if you're able to do that.
Yeah, very, very good point. Because if the federal government isn't going to help us, and Mary Felskowski says the state won't be helping us, it's up to us to help each other for the time being.
And I found this article in ProPublica this morning, which I think is also worth remembering. Back in spring, the Trump administration abruptly cut $500 million in deliveries from a program that sent American-produced meat, dairy, eggs, and produce to food banks and other groups around the country. About a quarter of the funding that it got the year before.
Yeah.
The items that were delivered through the Emergency Food Assistance Program were some of the healthiest stuff. Again, fresh produce and things like that. The Trump administration canceled that.
Yeah, of course.
Over 4,000 deliveries between May and September across 50 states. And what happened to all that stuff that was supposed to be sent out to these food banks? It sat there and it rotted. This is from ProPublica. We'll include this in our show notes so you can take a look at it also.
I don't understand what that gained us. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to things like this, Jane. When we talk about these matters, it makes my brain short circuit.
It boggles the mind.
Because when you cancel programs, when you cancel funding or cancel programs that their jobs are to help people with food assistance or just living a little bit of a better life, what you're telling us is you don't care about these people.
This $500 million had already been allocated.
Yeah.
USDA did not respond to questions from ProPublica in a May letter responding to senators' concerns about this cut. USDA said it had made additional purchases through another program and that the emergency food program would continue to operate as originally intended by Congress. But again, they cut $500 million from that program that was already allocated and set to go out to food pantries, and then they just let it sit there and rot.
And my guess is that $500 million, $500 million with a B, is probably going to go into the coffers that are going to be redistributed into the pockets of billionaires because of the big bill for billionaires. That's probably what's going to happen.
Well, that is their biggest concern,
yeah,
is making sure their donors are taken care of.
Yeah.
And when you hear Republicans talk about how this is all the Democrats' fault and they are the party of fiscal responsibility, this little tidbit also showed up this morning. This past Saturday, the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, apparently used his private jet, his government jet, to go see his girlfriend sing.
Can we just talk about the fact that Kash Patel has a girlfriend? I mean, seriously,
That's a whole nother.
It's a very weird thing that little troll of a human being gets to have girls like him. That's really weird to me. Very, very, very sweaty man.
Country singer Alexis Wilkins was singing as part of an event at Penn State. And on Saturday, apparently, the government jet took off from a Northern Virginia airport and landed at State College right near the campus.
Yeah, so that was our money.
But yeah, that's our money.
That's our plane.
That's our money. They get to use it.
They get to have it.
They get to
keep it.
use it.
They get to keep it
and work it to their advantages. But the rest of
Absolutely.
us, you know, just 2 years of pain.
Jane, those billionaires are going to take that money from us, the taxpayers, and they're going to reinvest it back into the country by way of paying for a ballroom where the East Wing used to be. So it's about investment, circular dollars. It's trickling down from them. Well, it's more like, you know how like there's a hard windstorm and like the rain goes vertical or goes horizontal? That's what it is. It's not like so much trickling down onto us. It's going horizontal onto other billionaires. So that's how the thing works now.
That's how it's working.
That's how it works. It's horizontal, not vertical.
Again, check our show notes after the show is over. We will have links in there if you would like to look at some of these articles. And then we'll try and get some links in there as well if you would like to help and donate to some local food pantries because that is going to be a need. We have news coming up next. When we come back, Jim Santel will be here from Amicus, a law review. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Jim. Everything sounding okay?
Everything is good here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm actually in my office at the courthouse, so I'm not using the wonderful equipment that you've otherwise provided. And the only thing I'm noticing here, and I hope it doesn't show up there with any sound interruption, is for some reason my screen here is every so often just jumping a little bit. And I don't know if you're seeing that on the StreamYard as well, or if it's just me here, but I'm assuming it will not interrupt the spoken version of this, but just wanted to note that I've got some weird tech thing going on here at the courthouse here. So
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see anything or hear, and everything sounds good. So
good. So you don't
we're
see
good.
anything either. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Good. I'll just stay put.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or what used to be Twitter. He joins us every Thursday at this time. Former U.S. Attorney, acting attorney, Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings across the network, 9 to 11. Listen to it. It's fabulous. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Jane, Greg, it's always a delight to be with you once again. And today, for those folks who are tuning in by StreamYard, you can actually see real law books behind me there. How exciting is that?
You rented them just for this. That's so
I did.
nice.
It's all a set. None of it's
Right,
real, but
right.
I'm not real anyway, so not a great compromise.
No, he is an actual attorney who does legal things.
And he's real, too.
And he
exists.
yes, he exists. We have a lot of things, very serious things to talk about this morning. And let's start with the situation in Chicago and ICE agents in Chicago, and Bovino, the head of ICE. This ICE force in Chicago is in a little trouble, it looks like. Or is that not the case?
No, I think he's in a lot of trouble. Anytime that a federal judge asks to see you every single evening to report on what you've done during the course of the day, you're probably in more than a little bit of trouble. And so that's what she has requested recently. The Seventh Circuit, the appeals court just above her, just yesterday said, well, that's a bit excessive, and said he doesn't have to show up for all of those. But she is plainly monitoring very, very closely what is going on. He is a U.S. Border Patrol commander. Again, you got it just right. His name is Gregory Bovino. And he is also this fellow who is seen on video hurling a canister of tear gas into a crowd. When you interview him, he plainly is not someone who's there committed to safety and security, but rather to, my words, not his, get people. And that is a commission, that's a mission, that's a goal, completely contrary to what we anticipate from anybody involving the administration of justice, and certainly trying to keep peace on the streets of Chicago or anywhere. This is again a reflection of the Trump administration directive to do whatever you want to do. And that's why this is so incredibly troubling.
Absolutely. And one of the instances, and again, this Bovino got in trouble before because he was directed not to be lobbing tear gas into residential areas. And then after she issued that order, he was caught on video doing exactly that. And at the same time, there were kids leaving their houses with their parents to go take part in a Halloween parade as he lobbed tear gas into the neighborhood. And another story that we mentioned briefly, at the same event, there is a running club in Chicago who posted this on social media. One of our athletes heading home from a team run yesterday, he turned onto his block. Border Patrol had it blocked off. Agents threatened to break his window if he didn't move his car. Before he could act, they pulled him out of the car, knelt on his back. Even though he never resisted, they broke 6 ribs and caused internal bleeding. Now, lest you think Border Patrol is coming back and saying, oh, that was a mistake. No, that's not what they're saying. Their Border Patrol came back and said, yep, we're doing our job. And if you're going to cause problems, then this is going to happen to you too.
It is, again, we are in absence for incredible adjectives here, right? Shocking, stunning, contrary to what we do in America. And here, not only should this be a source of outrage as to this particular young man, but know as well that there are remedies here. They're not criminal in nature, although they could be, depending upon if this fellow has indeed engaged in violations of the Constitution in doing this. It certainly appears. But there's also the notion of, again, a prosecution for arrest under circumstances where you're using excessive force. And people have, in fact, gotten monetary damages against law enforcement when they engage in this kind of conduct. There are remedies out there. And again, as I said, the local state's attorney there in Illinois should also be looking at whether or not this conduct is fundamentally criminal in nature. Only the DA, only the state's attorney can prosecute that. But all those things should be on the table in addition to America, wherever you are, expressing absolute outrage, demanding that this not continue. Sarah Ellis, again, is the name of the judge who deserves our commendation and our support. She is the one who's right now trying to keep a hold on this, stunningly saying, can we please not use tear gas when children are trick-or-treating tomorrow? What a stunning, stunning indictment of America that a federal judge has to say, let's let the kids get some candy and enjoy the evening without being gassed on the streets of America. What is going on?
If you're just joining us right now on Matenaer On Air, you are talking to Jane and Greg. We are on the show right now, Matenaer On Air, and we are talking with Jim Santel, who is the host of Amicus, a law review, which is on 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday. And if you miss an episode live, you can always go to civicmedia.us/shows, find Amicus, and you can download about 2 months worth of shows, if not more, honestly, because you're once a week. So there's a lot of access. It's a great, great program, and I highly recommend you check it out because it's like a little law class every single week for you. But Jim, earlier this week, I was talking about on the show with Jane that the way we're speaking about this country is how we used to speak about other countries, quote unquote, lesser countries, when it came to violence in the street as done by the federal government, and it's seeming to become overwhelming. And the fact that we are now in the halls of lesser administrations or countries or however you want to call it. But there's something to be said about this, about Sarah Ellis, Judge Sarah Ellis. Let me rephrase that. Is that we're now we can see slow movements of pushback, whether it's from the judges. This is to me, this is a big deal. The fact that there is at least a showing of accountability, trying to make them seem accountable. Whereas a couple weeks ago, it was just, sorry, that's it. We don't have to show our faces. We don't have to identify ourselves. If we beat you up, we beat you up. If we disappear you, too bad. If we send you somewhere else, not our problem. Now it seems like, all right, small cracks in the armor here. Yes. By ways of judge and by the press, by not adhering to Pete Hegseth's new demands for covering the Pentagon. I mean, from your point of view as a lawyer, and you see a lot of this happening as far as the legality of what they are doing, are you seeing more and more pushback coming from various judges? Or, I mean, is this do you see this as the beginning possibly?
I think it's the beginning. I think it's actually the continuation. We've seen this actually. I go back to March 15th when judges, a fellow named James Boasberg in the District of Columbia said, you know what? If there are 238 people on those planes going to El Salvador, you bring them back here. You tell the pilot to turn around. And many, many other instances, Greg and Jane, where that has happened. Sarah Ellis, the most recent of all of these. And yes, indeed, your listeners and all of us should take more than just solace in the notion that she is one of the guardrails, as are these other federal judges, saying, no, this is not permissible. This is not legal. Don't do it. And so they are one of the guardrails. It's federal district court judges for the most part. It's also appeals court judges. Again, when you get into the United States Supreme Court, you hit this brick wall, which appears to be granting the president permission to do whatever he wants to do. But there are judges out there saying no. The big question, which we've also talked about in the past on this wonderful broadcast, is what if the government, as it seems to be doing again in the streets of Chicago, witness this guy named Gregory Bovino, simply says, Judge, no, I'm not doing that. What if Donald Trump says no, Supreme Court, or other judges? What do we do then? Then we truly are beyond a constitutional crisis. Right. Then we're beyond even an authoritarian government.
What authority is gonna step in and hold them to account? The one thing I will take a little solace from is some of the judges who are making these decisions are actually Trump appointees who are coming back and saying, yeah, nice try. You can't do that. But something I find very disturbing that I don't think we've talked about nearly enough. This is from NBC News. Some new ICE recruits are showing up to training without being vetted. Recruits have had criminal backgrounds, failed drug tests, couldn't meet physical or academic standards. There is such a rush to deport people and get his quota up because Donald Trump has a quota. Stephen Miller has a quota. And they're just filling this up with people that we don't even know where they come. They could be Proud Boys. They could be all January 6th defendants who attacked Capitol Police officers. I don't understand why there is no oversight over that agency, Jim.
There should be. And frankly, to your last comment, Jane, wouldn't we assume that many of these people are among the 1,000 folks that the president pardoned early in his term on the first day? Proud Boys, 3%ers, those folks, mostly because we don't see their faces. We don't know who they are. We have no names. And this latest reporting that you have just accurately recited confirms, again, a basic flaw in what has been a part of this administration, this term and past term as well. If you want to work for the Department of Justice, I will tell you, this is what I dealt with for 30 years. Appropriately, you submit your documents, and until you're completely vetted, your background is done, your academic background is determined, whether you've got any criminal history, what is your present financial status, what is your family status, all these things go into it. And I've been in situations where I wanted to bring on an assistant U.S. attorney. The FBI wants to bring in a special agent. They're ready to go until someone in Washington gives me or gives that supervisor the call and says, you are ready. You can now call in Calvin and bring him on as an agent of the federal government. Until that happens and that approval is given, that person has no authority. They cannot enter the building, much less be out there doing things. This, once again, is law enforcement turned on its head. And therefore, we get these kinds of things where there's no background check and then presumably also no training. We've seen those videos as well. We give them guns. We go out there. There's no training on how to make a lawful arrest so people do not have their ribs broken and do not end up in the hospital. There are ways of doing that. That's a part of training. It is all destroyed. And apparently the president is just fine with that. Stephen Miller is fine with that.
Yeah.
And again, situation 2025, go back to your central point. Judges are saying, Mr. President, no, you cannot do this, do better. And we should take, again, some solace in that, even though the incidents continue to happen around the nation.
Staff members at the ICE Training Academy in Georgia discovered one recruit had previously been charged with strong-armed robbery, battery from a domestic violence incident. They've also found as recently as this month, some recruits going through the 6-week training course hadn't even submitted fingerprints yet for their background checks, and we're giving them guns and sending them out on the streets.
I had to submit my fingerprints to get a bartending license in this state, and they're not.
Right.
My goodness. Actually, what's weird, and I know it's going to sound odd, but there's a bit of sympathy I actually feel for trained, qualified ICE agents who, while I don't agree with what they're doing, those individuals come bumbling in, can't make their lives any easier either. I mean, you're trying to create a situation and calm it down maybe, and they come in with their guns blazing. This is bad.
Yeah, or dropping guns. That's not good. Jim Santel, we're going to continue our conversation with him on the other side. The Tish James case. I have questions. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Stay with us. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, our one, our only calzone on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream. Good morning, live stream.
Hi.
On Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up after 10 o'clock, Hans Breitenmoser will be joining us. He is a farmer, dairy farmer, cattle producer here in Wisconsin. We're going to talk about President Trump essentially telling cattle farmers, if only you knew as much about cattle as I do. So we're going to talk to Hans Breitenmoser and see how he reacts to that. Right now, Jim Santel, our friend, colleague, host of Amicus, a law review on Saturdays across the network from 9 to 11, is our guest. In the time that we have left, Jim, I wanted to talk about this Tish James case. Of course, the Trump administration has brought charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James. She's being accused, and now my website just went down. I got to bring it back up again. She is accused of mortgage fraud, and
Right.
from what I was able to read, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're saying that she lied on her mortgage application about whether or not she was going to rent out her house. That's the big crime, right?
That's it, that she made a false statement when she got this loan and affirmed that the house would be a second residence, would not rent it out. That's number one, even without what has developed recently. That's the huge crime here that's alleged in this indictment presented once again by this interim U.S. attorney. And we've got some developments now, Jane, as you've called to my attention and the attention of your listeners, that it turns out that there is a rider, there is an insurance rider, there's a bank loan rider rather on this that basically says that indeed you can use it for short-term rentals. This is one of those situations, Jane and Greg, where, you know what, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a judge, and maybe even if you're an insurance lawyer, which is what the U.S. attorney does, practices there, maybe you should have noticed that indeed this is the kind of thing that will not only affect your capacity to bring the lawsuit in the first place, but to get a conviction. You know, if this goes to a trial and the judge and the defense introduces evidence the judge may well look at this and say, you know what? There's nothing here to be decided by a jury. You could even do something called a directed verdict, directing the verdict based upon the fact that there's no way factually that a jury could find this person guilty, Letitia James, based upon the fact that there is no overt, not even close, any fraud here of the sort that's alleged. It's a stunning development. Once again, it's going to sink this lawsuit, as will other motions as well.
Well, and my whole thing is this was a victimless crime. There was no
Yes.
one who lost money. There was no one that got ripped off by this. They're just claiming that she lied for the purpose of getting this loan on this form. So there are no victims involved here. Nobody that she ripped off, unlike Steve Bannon, who ripped off Trump supporters for his wall. I can think of a number of other cases of Trump supporters ripping off people where actual harm was incurred monetarily, and they all got pardoned. But they want to go after Tish James for this. This seems like, what is it called? Grasping for straws.
Yes, yeah. It's also called vindictive prosecution. And the reason why she gets prosecuted, she'll raise this motion as well, in addition to this issue about there being this rider on the bank loan itself. She'll also maintain that the only reason I'm here, as she said publicly, is that the president of the United States wanted me indicted. And we pulled up some information here, as you said. You know, the dollar amount that she benefited from is so de minimis, so small. No U.S. attorney's office across the nation would ever even bring this as a viable prosecution, given the low dollar amount to begin with, even if there was a misstatement, which there wasn't here.
Right.
So many
Right.
problems with this. And the reason we're here once again is because Donald Trump wanted to get back at her. This is his retribution, which he promised the American people,
Yep.
those who voted for him. This is what you get.
Yep.
This is the retribution. And it's also the abuse, number one, of our judicial system. This is being bandied about, obviously, inside our courts. And it brings into the courtroom somebody who should be focused exclusively on what? Law enforcement in New York. If you think this isn't diverting her, think again. And that's the other, of course, piece of what Donald Trump wants to do. It's the investigation. It is the prosecution itself, in his view, which is the punishment. It does have that impact. Again, it's an abuse of the system, abuse of justice.
And her name just now goes on the growing list of enemies. That's
Yes.
the thing, you know.
And he said it out loud
yeah,
numerous times.
I saw a flag by my mother-in-law's house that said Trump 2024, the revenge tour, and that perfectly encapsulates what this
Yes.
is. Coming from a party, might I add, that 10, 15 years ago, it was they were railing against gay marriage, people who didn't like war, and frivolous lawsuits. It was frivolous lawsuits. They could not stop talking about that. And now this case, to me, that seems like it should get no attention from the federal government, is now the centerpiece and the ire of Donald Trump. Once again, putting in charge someone to prosecute the case who has no business
not
and no
qualified.
experience.
Well, and I also think this is indicative of the kinds of charges that the government could bring against just regular citizens like you and
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Let's it'd be fascinating to see what the grand jury was told here. The other problem that she has very quickly is if she did not present this information to the grand jury, there's an obligation on a prosecutor to present what's called exculpatory information.
Mm-hmm.
If she didn't present this to the grand jury, she has an ethical problem also down the road when we get those grand jury transcripts and figure out what this grand jury did and did not hear at the time of this indictment. More problems to come in this case.
Join Jim Santel Saturday mornings 9 to 11. Amicus, the law review across the network. Thank you so very much, my friend. We'll see you next week. News
Always
coming
an honor.
up next. Stay with us. This is Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast, statewide, countrywide. You can pick us up around the globe on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Thanks, Calvin. I take it the flashing here did not interrupt things.
Good morning, Hans. Can you hear me okay?
Good morning. I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I can hear you as well. We come back in just under 5 minutes. We're really looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you.
morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our home at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text or leave a voice note at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up next half hour, after the 10:30 news, we're going to lighten it up with sports. Milwaukee Journal Sentinel sports guru J.R. Radcliffe will be here to talk all things sports, and we'll wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing, Halloween themed this week. Today it is the Great Runaway Pumpkin Edition. Stay tuned for that. Right now, we are delighted to be joined by Hans Breitenmoser. He's a regular guest on Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Delighted to have him join us. He's a dairy farmer and a beef producer in Lincoln County. Good morning, Hans. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Good morning, Jane. Of course. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Lots of things going on. We can start with beef. Let's start with talking about beef and our beef producers. I found it kind of interesting, Hans, that the President of the United States essentially said that beef producers just don't get it. If they only understood as well as he does the industry, then beef producers wouldn't be upset.
I love that little laugh he had when you said that.
Your reaction?
Well, I think Greg got my reaction. Well, I mean, come on, really? Can you give us a little bit of credit out here for maybe having some grasp on what our reality is? The beef situation is as follows. And I mean, we get into the beef weeds here a little bit and may bore you with this, but here's what's happening in the beef world. The beef cow herd is as small as it's been in the history of forever. It's smaller than it's been since like the 1950s. And so what that does is that creates some opportunities for those of us who produce beef. So I'm a dairy farmer, and of course, once a dairy cow, loses her ability to continue producing milk efficiently and effectively, she becomes, ground beef. Typically, we also produce a lot of little black calves, Angus Holstein cross calves, that go into the beef side of things, and leave the dairy world and go into the beef world to get raised up to become the steaks and the roasts and all the things that we love. And so because that beef cow herd is smaller than it's been in a long time, that has created a supply issue, and the demand hasn't gone away, even though prices are higher in the stores. And in the dairy world, that's been a good thing for us because the milk prices are terrible. And so if I can have a little extra income by a higher value cull cow or those little black terminal crosses that we create that we don't need for replacements, that definitely helps my bottom line. And it definitely helps rural economies. So for the president to say, well, we're going to solve all the consumers' problems by sending a bunch of money to Argentina just doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't help those of us in production ag. And it's really not going to help the consumers either, because number one, the consumers' tax dollars get frittered away and sent south of the border for something that's really not going to improve their prices at the store anyways. If you truly want to improve consumers' lives and make their lives better while not hurting producers, we should be focused on antitrust legislation in this country and busting up the four great big companies that are multinational corporations that are raising your prices. And if you think for 1 second that introducing a bunch of Argentinian beef is going to help your price at Walmart, you're kidding yourself. Because guess what the Walmarts of the world understand? They understand what people are willing and able to pay for a product, and they're not going to lower the prices. They're just going to be a fatter margin for the people in between. So my prices aren't going to improve in terms of higher prices for my product. And I promise you, consumers, you will not pay less at the store with this. You're just going to pay extra taxes.
Well, and we're going to get to the whole hoof and mouth thing with Argentinian beef, because that's a whole separate thing. But I think it's important that people realize, like you said, Hans, let's go back a little bit. One of the reasons, from my understanding, that herds are smaller goes back a number of years to when we had extreme drought.
Mhm.
in some parts of the country, right? And it was
Absolutely.
very expensive for beef producers to keep feeding their cattle. It was cheaper for them to send them to slaughter. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why our beef price or our beef herds shrunk was related to this drought from several years ago, right?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. I mean, that's one part of it, but that's a big part of it. And to add on to that is the average beef, the average cow calf guy is, sort of my age or older. So, you're talking 60 plus years old, average, right? So there's a lot of people in that industry that have been in an industry for a long time and are looking at their situation and saying, wow, these beef cows are worth a lot of money. I don't have enough feed and I'm of a certain age, it's silly for me not to pull the trigger. So that beef cow goes off to slaughter, which adds beef to the market immediately. But guess what? That beef cow doesn't get bred with a calf that is
Right.
going to then become that beef steer. So her productive life is over, and the beef cow herd shrinks as a result. So there's demographic issues, there's weather issues, and I understand we're going to talk about this at some point too. There's the labor issue because guess what? It takes somebody to actually feed all those animals
Yep.
and do all the things.
If you're just joining us on Matenaer On Air, we are speaking with Hans Breitenmoser, who is a Lincoln County dairy farmer, a beef producer, a friend of Civic Media, and we are talking about the announcement last week. And really, if I'm not mistaken, too, it was really kind of off the cuff. I feel like his staff was behind the scenes going, "What did he just say?" Is that they
I
are
think
going
they do
to
that every day.
they're going to start buying Argentinian beef because apparently we are investing as a partner, a corporate partner in Argentine, whether
Argentinian.
Wow, good Lord. Whether it's $40 billion or giving our money to buy their beef. But you are a beef producer, and I imagine you talk to other people in the industry, and whether it's people in cattle throughout the country and the state. What are you hearing from them on this? I mean, because I have to imagine, regardless of who they voted for, this was not something they expected. Like, we've seen tariffs cause bailouts. We've seen farmers seem to vote against their interests, but this is one where he said, we're going to start buying Argentinian beef. And I have to imagine y'all were like, what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think there is a lot of that. Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's the reaction. I mean, I think it takes a long time for people's voting reflexes to change, which is to say, the quote red parts of our country are still pretty darn red, and it's interesting how many questionable or straight up poor decisions the administration can make, and how many, rather than converts to more progressive politics, but it tends to create apologists for the administration, or people willing to make excuses and say, well, this is somehow part of some magic strategy that's going
Long-term
to
plan.
a long time. Yeah, and it's so interesting because I feel like other administrations in the past didn't get away with that, right? I mean, if anything came out of the Biden administration or the Obama administration or even the Bush administration, was like, people would jump on it immediately and say, what in the wide world of sports is going on? So there is a difference because of this, I'm going to say, cultish kind of situation here. But yeah, I mean, and the other interesting thing is that, one wonders how much of this has to do with some concern over consumer prices in this country and how much of it has to do with the fact that there's a political ally in Argentina. I mean, if he if he wasn't in bed with the Argentinian president, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If that guy didn't, wasn't a huge, Trump fan, then this deal wouldn't have happened to begin with. So it's frustrating because I just don't see a lot of congressional oversight here either. There's an opportunity for people in Congress to say, wait, hold on, this is a terrible idea, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It's poor public policy.
Yeah, it's bad for our farmers who our politicians love to raise up on a pedestal anytime they want to get elected.
I mean, there's no end to the hero worship in my industry, and I mean, I'm proud to produce food. I really am. I sincerely am. But it becomes more frustrating when you have an administration who doesn't understand how that whole system works. And I'm the last guy that wants consumers to pay through the nose when they go and they want to buy a pound of hamburger or a steak. but that's my frustration here. I mean, if I could honestly sit here and say, well, okay, the good news is that Jane and Greg are going to get cheaper food at the store, then it would be a little bit easier for me to swallow this. But that's not what's going to happen. I promise
Right.
you that simply won't happen.
Exactly.
So what has been gained other than bailing out, a guy in Argentina who's struggling politically?
Well, and one of the reasons, Hans, that we're bailing out this guy in Argentina is because a member of the Trump administration has a really wealthy friend who bought up debt in Argentina, who really needs Argentina to recover so he gets his investment back.
Yep.
Let's go back a little bit to the four big, there's the four big producers. They're the ones who process the meat. As you said, there are only four of them in the country that control all of this. And one of the biggest ones is Brazilian owned. And yet we never, ever hear that talked about.
No, we don't. And it's so strange because I feel like, from a policy standpoint and how to improve the lot of rural America, this would be a fairly easy one to tackle. So you've got basically a monopoly in the meatpacking industry, and they're multinational companies. And when you layer that monopoly on top of the retail groceries situation, sort of, and how that's monopolized, it just straight up doesn't do any good for producers, and it doesn't do any good for consumers. And antitrust legislation, by God, is something that everybody, regardless of how you feel about, guns or the minimum wage or anything else. I mean, I feel like that's something that all policymakers should be able to get behind, because you see the impacts of it, and the impacts are broad. But I think, at the risk of going down another rabbit trail, you're also talking about money in politics when you start talking about antitrust legislation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I honestly, Hans, I love having you on the show because you just say so many amazing things, and I forgot what I was going to ask you and we wouldn't have time anyway, so I'm just going to let Jane take it from here because my brain is falling apart because I read the news all the time.
Usually somebody asks me a very simple question, and I ramble for a half an hour, and I forgot the question that they asked to begin with. So,
sir, would you like fries with that? That's all I was asking.
yeah, exactly. I was going through the drive-through, and half an hour later,
I wanted to share this with you real quickly before we go to break. Carolyn Levitt, who is the spokesperson for the White House, talking about America's beef producers. They're struggling because of the many horrible policies of the previous administration.
of course.
Is that your lived experience that
No.
this is all because of Biden? I'm just checking.
No.
No.
Beef prices were going up during that 4-year period as well. But again, it has to do with simple math, right? It has to do with in order to produce a beef steer, that steer has to be born, 14, 18, 20 months ago, depending on breed, et cetera, et cetera. And that has to come from a cow. And if that cow doesn't exist, she can't have the calf that becomes the steer. That has nothing to do with who's in the White House.
That is so logical. That's making head explode all across
Science.
Washington. They're just trying to accept the logic of that. We're going to continue our conversation with Hans Breitenmoser. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Don't go away. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We're joined by Hans Breitenmoser, a dairy farmer and beef producer in Lincoln County. And Hans, we had Troy from Mount Horeb has been waiting very patiently on the phone. Troy, what did you want to say real quickly, please?
Hi, real quick. The Kansas City Star wrote an article about how tariffs were gutting farmers, and a farmer from El Dorado said that farmers aren't blaming Trump for the tariffs, and I said they should. And he said back to me, no, sir, farmers are doing better right now than the majority of Biden's 4 years. Don't open your mouth about something you know nothing about. Is that true?
Thank you, Troy. Great question. Great question.
Yeah, I'm gonna tend to disagree with your friend.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not your lived experience.
Not my lived experience. Milk prices are not great. I'm a consumer and producer of corn and beans. And so the lower prices that we're seeing for commodities like corn and soybeans are helpful to the dairy world because we feed those products. But we're a lot of us do both. And so it's a kind of a double-edged sword there. And the beef prices, again, are high, but they have nothing to do with this administration or the last administration. It's a simple
Supply and demand, right?
It's supply and demand, and it has, again, to do with the demographics of the average age of the beef producers and the weather that we've had out west and in some of these places where the cow-calf herds exist.
Over the past few months, we've been hearing from various farmers, and some farmers say there's no resentment, no problems amongst their peers and their colleagues and whatnot. And then we talk to other farmers who say they're hopping mad. And then we got people who are mad at Trump, and then they get what they want. And then they're not mad at Trump anymore. And I feel like when you ask a person to speak on behalf of a whole group, farmers aren't a monolith. Everyone has different thoughts and feelings, and they're going to do and say what they want, and that's for them to do. So yeah, I mean, but I can't imagine that. But the notion that it's better than Biden, it's like that. I need more proof than that. But one of the things we wanted to talk about though with you, Hans, is you went to D.C. last week to talk about sensible immigration reform, because as you've spoken on Pat's show and on our show, that this mission on behalf of the government to rid ourselves of the immigrants in this country is really doing damage to the farming industry. And guess what? We talked about that for a while now.
Yeah. So, I was in D.C. last week with an organization called ABIC, which stands for American Business Immigration Coalition. And basically, ABIC is a bunch of folks who are business owners and represent different business interests, ag, hospitality, construction, you name it. And the medical world as well, and our elder care type world as well. And so the reason why ABIC exists is because ABIC and its members understand that, again, it's kind of a simple math problem. We don't have enough young people compared to the number of old people that we have. Yep. Now, to put it in a dairy farmer's sort of lingo, our breeding program sucked 20 years ago, and therefore we didn't produce enough babies, and there's not enough 20-year-olds to fill the positions. Now, we can't unring that bell. Right. And this isn't a Democratic problem or a Republican problem. It's a simple math problem. If your breeding program isn't any good and you don't produce enough young people, it at some point is going to bite you in the rear end. So, and as our population in this country ages from a lower birth rate and from longer life expectancy, you've got more and more people entering a stage of their life where they're not producing any widgets, whether that's beef for the grocery store or whatever it is. And you also at the same time have a population who needs care from other people, right? Yes. So that puts everybody in a bind. So we've seen that in the ag world for years and years and years, and everybody else is seeing as well. So ABIC's job and those of us who went along went there to tell our stories to legislators and to try and help them understand that this is a math problem that we can't get over anytime too soon internally. And the good news is we've got people from all over the world who would like to come into this country, and lots of them that are already in this country and would like the legal authorization to work here. They're not looking for citizenship. They're not looking for any handouts. They're really just wanting to be able to do their work. And again, in many cases, work that they've been doing for 10, 15, 20 years, and to be able to do that without, getting any aggravation from, the heavy hand of ICE.
It almost seems like the individuals who want to come into this country want to do it in a legal, logical way so they can work and provide. And yet still, even when they do it the legal, logical way, they're still getting thrown out of this country, and it's harming our farmers.
Well, and as you said too, there's this big push now under the Trump administration. We need more babies. We're under babied. Everybody should have more babies. Well, even if we start that assembly line now, as you said, that's going to take 20 years.
Exactly. No, and I'm not anti-babies. I've got 5 children of my own, but again, it's what do you do between now and then? I mean, who's going to take care of grandma between now and then? Who's going to milk the cows between now and then? Who's going to, build the buildings and do the, all of these things? I mean, I heard all sorts of interesting comments. The elder care industry, for example, is really getting hit hard because their average age is like 55. So some of these people are leaving that industry and turning right around and requiring the care that industry provides.
They just served. Hans Breitenmoser is a dairy farmer and beef producer in Lincoln County. Thank you so very much, Hans. We really, really appreciate your time.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you.
Stay with us. News is next, and then we'll lighten it up with a little audio sorbet and all things sports with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel's J.R. Radcliffe. Don't go away. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text. The number is the same at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the Great Runaway Pumpkin Edition. Halloween-themed Tisbets all this week. Right now, though, he joins us every other Thursday to talk all things sports. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel sports guru, J.R. Radcliffe, is here. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween. I want to talk about Trey Savage.
God
Okay.
bless you.
I am so happy for this kid. I heard about it this morning and I was like, you go, Trey. Go,
every few years, somebody pops up in the World Series who just doesn't have very much big league baseball experience. And, whether it's because the kid just doesn't know any better, rising to the moment, or, probably more likely they don't have a lot of film on him. They haven't really figured him out yet as a big league pitcher. We saw this with David Price a while back. Michael Wacha with the St. Louis Cardinals had such an amazing rookie run. And this year it's Trey Savage, who is a strikeout machine. Even when I think in game 5, when he struck out 12 Dodgers over 7 innings, yes. I don't even think his command was that good, but he dominated. The Dodgers have looked really sort of lethargic, really, even in the Brewers series. They only scored 15 runs in 4 games. That's, if you're talking less than 4 runs a game, that's a beatable team offensively. And obviously the pitching was what separated the Dodgers then, but right now the pitching hasn't been as good, and Toronto has sort of done the things you would think Milwaukee could do. And yeah, Trey Savage, what a great story. I mean, what a nails performance. This is a kid who pitched at A-ball a lot this year. Below, the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, as an example, are advanced Class A. So he pitched at advanced Class A and also the level below that for a lot of this year, low A. And then he ended up getting a little bit of experience at double, a little bit of experience at triple, and they brought him up for the last two weeks of the regular season. So he only has 2 weeks of big league baseball under his belt, goes right into the postseason, and then ends up having just a tremendous showing. This is not his first good game in the postseason. He was really, really good in a previous round as well. So really, really fun story. It's something that happens every fall. Somebody busts through, I would say.
Well, and I saw something this morning that said that he made like $57,000 last year, and he's taken on the Dodgers, which has got the biggest payroll in the league, right? And then just smoked them. So did he just come out and they were so confused? Is that what it was?
They looked confused. Yeah. And the 57,000 is a little misleading. That's what he made as a big leaguer this year. That's 2 weeks of salary at the big league level. So and that might've included his minor league pay this year. Although I think there's probably a little bit more there, but I mean, he just hasn't been here that long. And I think you see that sometimes with a team that just hasn't faced somebody who throws like that and hasn't figured him out yet. I don't think anybody, Trey Savage was a pretty well-known prospect in baseball coming out of East Carolina, but he wasn't like a top 5 pick or anything. So there is still a pretty cool story here. It's just that, I don't think anybody is saying this is the next great pitcher in big league baseball necessarily. I think he's just gotten hot, and I mean, he'll still be very good. He'll certainly be in the rotation next year for the Blue Jays, and he'll be a big piece of what they do going forward. And maybe he is the next great pitcher, but I really think this is just a case where they haven't seen him very much. They haven't figured him out very much. And he's just taking advantage of that right now.
I'm sorry to derail the fun train of World Series victories. And I love this story, but I want to talk about the fact that what you just said, as far as the Dodgers and how much they scored against the Brewers in the NLCS, and ask a question of you. Do the Brewers have a postseason problem? Is that something you can actually look at from a analytic standpoint, say we completely smoke them in the regular season, and we go to the postseason a lot, but we don't make it very far? Do the Brewers have a postseason problem?
I think coming into this, this postseason, before they'd won a series in the last 7 years, you could have said that. You could have. It isn't enough data. It rarely is when we're talking postseason. There's never one thing that leads a team to victory. There's never one stat that says, well, if the teams that homer the most always win, or the teams that have the best pitching always win. It's just, you get down to these just handful of games, and it just never is that simple. So I think what this series has told me, because I really did look at that Dodger series with the Brewers and said to myself, the Brewers can't beat this. I mean, they could have played better, but they cannot beat those 4 pitchers at that level. And I still think to some degree that's true. Those pitchers pitched really well. And when you have guys who are that expensive and that talented, if they pitch well, you're probably not going to beat them. They have not pitched as well in this series, and the Blue Jays have taken advantage of it. The Blue Jays have played better than the Brewers did. No questions asked. Like they just, they've kept their sort of pass the baton mentality, and they have worked really long at bats. The Brewers kind of got out of that. They started swinging out of the zone a lot. And that ultimately, I think, was a big part of their undoing. But I do think this is a reminder that the Brewers can do this in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
They are equipped. They are talented enough. And I think if you play that series again, I do think the results are different. I don't know if the Brewers beat the Dodgers. I don't really think in my heart of hearts there's any scenario where in those 4 games you play them again, the Brewers win that series. I don't think they do. But I do think next year you come back in the same situation, and the chips probably fall completely differently, just because it is a small sample and because the Brewers are legitimately that talented. It is now nice that they have a postseason series win under their belt. They can build on that. They don't have to worry about getting a monkey off their back if that's what they think. They can come back next year and, stronger than ever, I guess, in position to in fact go one step further in 2026.
If you're just joining us, we are speaking with Journal Sentinel. Wow, words are tough today, Jay.
Words are tricky.
Journal Sentinel sports writer and our sports guru, J.R. Radcliffe, and we are talking about all things Wisconsin sports, as we do every Thursday. And that. Thank you for saying that, because it's very hard to come. If the Brewers would have lost 4-3 or even 4-2, I think there'd be less angst, well, heft on my shoulders, because this is all about me. But when you see it just happen, 1, 2, 3, 4, done, moving on, and that, it was hard to keep hope alive as well in like game 3, where you're like, they're playing so poorly that they don't just wake up and have a good bowl of cereal and all the things come together. There is a malfunction here happening that they have to address now, between now and the spring training. But you're right. Not only did we get to the postseason, not only did we make it to the NLCS, we made it to the NLCS. We made it to the NLDS with a bye, and we did all the good things, got home field, best record. I have to keep telling myself that, and I think that's something very uniquely Brewers or small market team, where you have to remind yourself how good you are when you did well.
And I mean, in baseball, there are haves and have-nots. The Dodgers have been to the World Series a bunch lately. So the Houston Astros were on a run here. The Brewers are disadvantaged. It's not like everybody's on a level playing field. They're not. The Brewers are, in fact, they do need stars to align to get to the World Series. So that can be frustrating as a Brewers fan to know that, all things being equal, you're still probably at a disadvantage. But the Brewers have done everything they can in the model that they've been given. They've really built it. They won 97 games. Regular season doesn't always translate to the postseason, especially because the postseason takes place after you've played 162 games. Guys get tired, guys get hurt, and that can have a disproportionate effect if you're a team built on kind of everybody doing their part. Well, if everybody's tired, you don't have that one guy who's going to slug a 3-run homer and save the day against a really top flight pitcher. So that's maybe something they can address with their roster. But this Dodgers team is fallible. Like they were fallible in the regular season. They were not at full strength when the Brewers beat them 6 out of 6 times. They didn't have Blake Snell and Shohei Ohtani pitching. So that's kind of a caveat, but they're fallible. Like Mookie Betts had a really rough up and down year. He's one of their star players. He hasn't been doing anything. And Shohei Ohtani, as great as he was in that one game against the Brewers, has actually been pretty quiet in this postseason. Like they have vulnerabilities like every team does. It's just a matter of having the stars align and being able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Well, go Jays.
Of course.
I want the Blue Jays to beat the Dodgers, and then things will be right with the world.
Canada.
Somebody else other than the Dodgers. Yeah, we're talking to J.R. Radcliffe from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Let's move over to sports. We beat our ex-boyfriend, or football. We beat our ex-boyfriend.
Are we still? Are we talking about the Brewers beating Craig Counsell, or are we moved on? Okay.
Now we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers.
Excellent. Just a tremendous performance by Jordan Love. He's the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and played the way that I bet Aaron Rodgers trained him to play, to take the right opportunities and throw the ball down the field. Never took a sack, was able to evade the pressure when it did come, and just a masterclass performance from Jordan Love, and something I think we've kind of been waiting for. Like he's been good. The stats say he's good, but the Packers haven't really let him cook. They've really focused on that running game and stayed a little bit conservative. And I think there were times that bit them this year. There were times where they could have opened up a bigger lead and, stayed conservative, and it cost them against Cleveland in particular is kind of what I'm thinking of. So they didn't do that. The running game wasn't on point. Josh Jacobs is a little banged up, and they just made it, put the game on the back of Jordan Love, and he absolutely delivered. Spread the ball around. Tucker Kraft with an incredible game. He's probably the best tight end in football and on the very short list if he's not at the top. So that's a really great development. Christian Watson coming back is a huge development. Really gives them a dimension they have not had in the passing game. Jaden Reed is going to be back soon. A lot to like. I mean, that was, and all of it against Aaron Rodgers, who will probably never beat the Green Bay Packers now in his career. Sad. You hate to see it. You just hate to see it.
What a darn shame, she says, smiling.
Jane, your vindictiveness
is it dripping?
It's dripping off your chin right now.
Let me wipe that off. That's very unattractive.
I mean, and this is something that a lot of Packers fans and analysts have been talking about, the fact that, the season definitely started rough. I mean, tie. I'm still I'm more shocked by tie than loss, but it seems like that's what they're doing. They're picking up the pieces right now and they're moving forward. They are number one in the NFC, North by a little bit, not tied, but like 5 wins for both the Lions and the Packers. But if they keep moving this forward, they can really put some daylight between those stats and do the work that needs to be done, especially if they're letting Jordan throw the ball.
Yeah, they're the number one team in the NFC overall right now, but it's by a really narrow margin. They could easily be the 6th team, based on how things fall within a week or two. So there's some pretty good teams, Detroit among them, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles. Like there's some Philadelphia, who's a team that's on their schedule. They haven't looked great. They look pretty beatable actually as the reigning Super Bowl champs, but they also have a very good record. I mean, these are teams that the Packers have to keep an eye on. And so just because they're out to this good start does not mean that they're guaranteed a playoff spot. They're going to have to keep working on it. The Bears are one of those teams that's kind of right on the fringe that they're going to have to take care of business against them. So this is not a holy smokes, this team is in the clear now, but I do think we've seen a Super Bowl caliber team. The defense has been quite good. Micah Parsons is such a difference maker, and they've had hiccups for sure. They are not constantly dominant, but they are good enough to win a Super Bowl. That's what I've learned the last 3 weeks where they've won games, and they should beat Carolina again this weekend. Carolina's not very good, and then they get to a tougher schedule as the year goes on. But this is a favorable run that they're on in terms of schedule. They got to keep going.
Read J.R. Radcliffe in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. He joins us every other Thursday to talk all things sports. Go Packs, go Jays. Thank you, JR. We'll see you in a couple. Stay with us. When we return, we'll wrap up the show. This Shouldn't Be a Thing, Halloween edition, The Great Runaway Pumpkin. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching in the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Tomorrow is Halloween.
It's also Friday.
Friday already. Fridays, Dan Schaefer joins us, Civic Media's political editor and also the creator of the Recombobulation Area. He will be here at 9:30 to join us as we wade through all of the news.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a lot to cover with Dan.
There'll be a lot to cover, and I want to come back really quick to something we talked about in the first hour of the show regarding the food pantries and food drives.
And Snap.
There are links in the show notes to food pantries around the state that you can find help if you need to, if you want to donate as well. And then also the Journal Sentinel story that we were referencing has resources in there on what to do to find the food drives themselves, because the pantries are always around. The drives are going to be happening this weekend. So if you want to be part of it in one way or the other, you can go to civicmedia.us/shows, look for the first hour of our show. And I think I entitled it something very, very simple, very, very easy, called Don't Tear Gas Kids on Halloween.
That's always a good idea.
You can find out more information by going to the show's website.
You can find all of our shows. We've got a good 2 months worth of archives at civicmedia.us. Just look at the top, click on shows, go to Matenaer On Air, and Greg does a great job with the show notes, including links to articles that we talked about if you would like to look into things further. We wrap up the show like this every single day. Calvin, it is 10:54. That means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you find a thing you think this should not be, send it into Greg and me at Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. This is from the Toronto Sun. We're doing Halloween-themed Tisbets this week. Calvin found this. Headline reads, "It kept blowing away. Runaway inflatable pumpkin spooks Ohio police." Police in Parma Heights, Ohio, went in pursuit of a runaway inflatable pumpkin after getting calls of a large orange object on the run. Body camera footage from the police department shows the inflatable pumpkin rolling down the street. Officers did eventually stop and detain the inflatable pumpkin Tuesday night. It still refused to answer any questions. The footage shows an officer holding on to the giant plastic gourd and saying to a colleague, "I was following it, but it kept blowing away."
For me, like, this story only exists to be just hilarious, and it's for these poor police officers who said, like, "I didn't train to do this."
I wasn't trained for this. After they captured the giant inflatable pumpkin, multiple officers tried to deflate it, but failed. So they all had to work together to push the giant orange ball into the back of a police car. It's like trying to stuff a keyhole, a cream puff through a keyhole.
That is... Does not one of you have a knife on you?
Poof, that would take care of it. One officer can be heard saying, "I've never seen that before," referring to the giant inflatable Halloween pumpkin packed tight in the squad car's back seat. The officers then drove it back to its home. That's why they didn't puncture it.
Oh, that's very nice.
So it can be enjoyed by all who pass through the neighborhood through the rest of the Halloween season. No one was injured. No tickets were issued.
Egos may or may not have been bruised.
A little burned by that.
It's unfortunate, but that's the life of a copper in, was it Toronto?
Parma Heights, Ohio.
Oh, we have audio from the chase. Audio from the chase, folks.
It keeps blowing away.
Hey, doesn't anyone have a knife? No, you can't cut it. Got to go back to the Morgan household.
Oh, how I wish there had been video of them trying to stuff this thing into the back of the squad car.
At least, like, tie it down to the top.
Something.
And it would have lit up the pumpkin.
They could have put it on a string and just driven it behind them as it's floating behind them.
Inspiring the dreams of children everywhere.
That wraps up today's episode of
This shouldn't be a thing.
By the way, Tiffany in River Falls listening on WLAK in Amory. Greg, also remind folks their employers might offer matching donations. So if you make a donation to a food pantry, something, an organization like that, check with your employer. They might match your donation.
That would be amazing. Yes. Thank you very much, Tiffany.
Thanks for that, Tiffany. Appreciate it. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers and everyone at Civic Media. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and texting and listening and watching on the stream. It genuinely means the world. I hope you find some joy today, even if it's just a little scooch, and you get the chance to share it. It's important. Keep it right here.
A scooch of joy.
A scooch of joy. Have a scooch of joy and spread it around. Yeah. It's good for us. Keep it right here. We have news coming up next, followed by Tom Hartman, Todd Alba, Maggie Dawn, Pete Schwaba, and Robert Pilot on Nightlight. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow.